My name is Patrice Lawrence, and I'm a writer for children, young people, adults, anybody who will read my books. And I want to talk about Needle. And Needle is a short book, dyslexia-friendly font, published by Barrington Stoke, about a girl called Charlene who has been in the foster care system for a couple of years since her mother died. She's knitting a blanket shaped like a dinosaur for her younger sister Candy, who she hasn't seen for 2 years. Her foster mum's son, Blake, rather cruelly unravels the blanket, and Charlene gets very upset. She's obviously, a little bit angry at the world, and she stabs him in the web of his hand with her knitting needle. Charlene loves knitting. It's what she does to make sense of the world. It's her form of therapy. But after this happens with Blake, there's escalating things that mean she eventually ends up in a criminal justice system. So it's a way about thinking about how a girl like Charlene, who the world has not been kind to, who's seen in a particular way, and who does not want to say sorry, I suppose maneuvers through this difficult world and finds some degree of happiness. Empathy is at the heart of everything that I do. And I think for me, because I was the first in my family to be born in the UK and a Black child growing up in Sussex at a time when racism was very overt as well as also sort of implicit as well, it just made me feel that I was inferior in the world. And what I suppose I longed for was books that told me otherwise. I mean, I was a massive reader and I've always loved reading, and I could take little bits from certain books that I related to, but nothing about me as a young black person negotiating a white world. And the first jobs that I had really as an adult were working with people who were often pushed to the edges and people who there were big stereotypes about. So it might be people that experienced the care system, people who had been in prison, people who experienced addiction. And a lot of those issues are relevant to my own family background as well. So for me, in every book I write, particularly if it's a book that is marketed towards children and young people, I think about how can we feel empathetic about people who experience those stereotypes. So particularly with Charlene as a young Black woman, as perhaps a teenager that people might already inject those stereotypes on because she's loud and darker skins, and also in foster care. I really wanted people to view her through a new lens and understand what it's like to be from that background and have all those negative stereotypes projected on you. I think shortly after the book was published, there was I suppose another scandal about the way a Black teenager had been treated in school by the police and how she'd been searched. So I think all of these things are entwined. And for me, what I hoped is that we look at young people's behaviour, particularly young Black people, and think about why is somebody behaving that way, and not to actually judge people. If somebody's talking too loudly, we might judge them. If somebody behaves in a way that we don't want them to, we might judge them. And what I hope is that we step back and look and understand why people might behave that way. And that sometimes the way we behave externally might hide the fact that we might be frightened, or we might be uncertain of things, we might want to protect ourselves. So for me, I hope people take a step back and think, actually, that person is more than their behaviour. There's a whole human being behind that, with a whole history, and actually they might just be frightened. I think that the world needs to be a kinder place, full stop, and empathy is that route to kindness, to actually take a step back and think about how other people feel, to be compassionate, to not make judgments, will just make the world better anyway. And I think us as adults need to be the role models for that. I think many children and young people, you yourselves, tend to be quite compassionate, tend to be much more tolerant, tend to be kinder. So I think we as adults need to model that. But also I think books are a good way of modeling that as well, to make our characters compassionate, and also perhaps present you with like challenging characters in real life that you might think, whoa, gonna stay back from them, but then help you understand why they behave the way they do, and help you think, okay, I understand that. I can feel empathetic now.